U.S. troops are headed back to Afghanistan, many of them from Fort Bragg. What's bringing them back overseas? Myths, misinformation, and flat-out lies. An expert helps us fact-check claims about the pandemic.
And more people are going to the hospital with coronavirus. We go inside a Novant Health emergency room. We begin, though, with breaking news in downtown Greensboro tonight. Firefighters responded to a fire at the Gateway Plaza Senior Public Housing Building on Spring Garden Street. We've just learned that 3 people are now at Moses Cone Hospital. The Red Cross is also there helping tonight. Here's a live look at the scene. You can see a lot of fire and police still there. More than 70 firefighters are on the scene at this hour. Dozens of people who live in the Gateway Plaza building have been walking around the parking lot. Firefighters evacuated everyone from the 6th floor down. They have issued a shelter in place for people living on the remaining floors. Investigators say the fire started on the 3rd floor around 8 p.m. Now, this angle right here is from our Greensboro Skycam. Investigators haven't said which unit this is impacting. We heard from a Greensboro fire chief just moments ago.
We're working with the Red Cross to move every resident with the housing authority to maybe a hotel room for tonight. Again, 3 people are in the hospital because of this fire. This is a developing situation. We will share new details on air and on WFMYnews2.com. We now move to the controversy in Triad classrooms. Protect students with mask mandates or let families choose? We've seen dozens of parents come out to school board meetings demanding masks be optional. And there are plenty of parents who don't agree with that, saying they prefer the mask mandates. WFMY News 2's Grace Holland spoke to one who says she's concerned about her students' safety.
Here's how masking policies are looking at public school districts around the Triad. In green are districts making masks optional. In yellow are districts that are requiring them. One Rockingham County Schools mom tells me her son is already back in school where masks are optional, and the rest of the district is set to return in a week and a half.
I think they're going to find out very quickly that they've made a big mistake.
Mary Ryan's family, including her 17-year-old, are vaccinated, but she worries that will not be enough to slow the spread of COVID-19 in his school without a mask requirement.
As I've been going about doing my business, I see very few people wearing masks. And so I expect that in the general community, there will be problems.
The Rockingham County Board of Education voted to make masks optional the night before her son's first day back at Rockingham County Early College High School.
And they did not set up a safe alternative. So if you decide you don't want your child going into the schools with unmasked, unvaccinated people, then you don't have a choice.
The district did extend the deadline for its e-learning academy, but it's only available to grades 4 through 8. She says most of the students in her son's classes are choosing to mask, but she's not sure that will be the case throughout the district.
With a lot of kids going into school without masks on, and the Delta variant is going to spread very quickly and very easily that way, and the schools will end up closing quickly.
I've heard from other parents and other districts who share the same concern. One told me she hopes to pull her child out of the district, but she did not want to go on camera for fear it could hurt her chances.
Grace, thank you. Well, here is a closer look at Triad schools. Masks are required at Guilford, Winston-Salem, Forsyth, Alamance, Burlington, Lexington City, and Montgomery County schools. They are optional at several other districts, including Rockingham, Davidson, Randolph, Yadkin, Wilkes, and Stokes County schools.
New tonight, another Triad University will be requiring masks. Wake Forest University says all students and staff must wear masks regardless of vaccination status. The rule also applies to all visitors on campus. You'll remember Wake Forest also requires students and staff to be vaccinated or have a religious or medical exemption. Students are free to remove masks in their dorm rooms. The new policy takes effect next Wednesday. Several other Triad colleges have new pandemic protocols. North Carolina A&T says students must show proof of vaccination or undergo frequent testing. UNC Greensboro is also asking for vaccine status. The school has a $50 incentive for students who do get vaccinated. UNCG also requires masks indoors.
Ever since 3 Triad hospital systems issued their vaccine requirements, workers have protested against the policy. But there are medical and religious exemptions. A Navant healthcare worker sent us these 8 pages of rules given to employees. They determine who gets an exemption and why. A committee makes the final decision. They have a similar system over at Wake Forest Baptist Health.
Exemption, the individual, because they're going to know their religious exemption, they fill that out and they submit that, and then that will be reviewed anonymously by a committee.
The vaccination deadlines for employees at Cone Health, Navant, and Wake Forest Baptist Health range from September to October.
Myths, misconceptions, and misinformation. The false claims about the pandemic are popping up again. We're here to separate facts from fear and just outright lies. WFMY News 2's Alma McCarty spoke to an expert about recent claims.
To combat the misinformation on COVID-19 making rounds again, we talked with Dr. Cynthia Snyder, an infectious disease expert debunking bogus claims. Claim number 1, the vaccine is more dangerous than COVID-19. Dr. Snyder says the short answer is no.
We've had about 180 million people in the U.S. alone have had the vaccine, and the safety profile is there.
Claim number 2, the vaccine isn't effective. Dr. Snyder says it's a misconception she's heard quite a bit. Even with rare breakthrough cases, she says the vaccine is still doing its job, preventing hospitalization and severe disease.
The vaccine still had that great effectiveness for severe disease, like in that 90% against Delta variant, and then probably in like the 50 or 60% for mild or asymptomatic disease. But that still tells us that the vaccine is working.
Claim number 3, mutations like the Delta variant are weaker than the original virus. Dr. Snyder says it's the opposite. Unvaccinated people are getting hit harder with the virus.
We're seeing people kind of progress pretty quickly to the point where they may need to be intubated. We feel that this is much more severe than the wild type that we saw last year.
A 4th claim to debunk masks are harmful to children. According to Dr. Snyder, masks cut down on the spread of COVID and other respiratory illnesses.
As long as it's worn properly and kids are washing their hands, and this applies to adults, that it works very well.
Now, a 5th and final claim. Health experts can't be trusted because they're flip-flopping. Well, Dr. Snyder told me COVID-19 is an emerging infection, one of the most aggressive they've ever dealt with. Since it's ever-changing, the information and guidance will too. But the main message remains: vaccinations are the way out of the pandemic.
Alma, thank you. While people continue doubting the solution, we're keeping our eyes on the problem. Hospitalizations went up again today. 2,409 North Carolinians are in the hospital with coronavirus. Once again, a number we haven't seen since February, when the pandemic was at its peak. We also saw 5,900 new cases today. That's the second highest mark in months. We saw just shy of 7,000 earlier this week. Meantime, our vaccination rate saw a small uptick today. 48% of the population is fully vaccinated. The number had stayed at 47% for several weeks. Just ahead, we'll take a closer look at how these numbers manifest inside our state's hospitals. A look inside a Navant Health emergency room as doctors scramble to treat patients. That's in about 9 minutes.
New at 11, a person is in critical condition after a shooting off of Bracy Ridge Road. Greensboro police say it happened around 2:30 this afternoon. This was the scene at the intersection of Bracy Ridge Road and Beechcroft Drive. Officers found one person with gunshot wounds. The victim is now in the hospital tonight. They say bullets also hit a nearby car, but no one inside was hurt. Police have not released any suspect information at this time. An update tonight, nearly 2 years after police say a man shot at officers on I-85 in Greensboro. Court documents show Julius Williams was sentenced in federal court. You may remember back in November of 2019, officers arrested Williams after he sped through a work zone going 100 miles an hour. They say he refused to pull over and even fired shots at an officer. He was later charged with attempted first-degree murder. He pleaded guilty to possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. He'll spend just over 9 years in prison.
State lawmakers keep trying to push through a state budget. Today, they got a little closer. The House approved its budget proposal as it's done several times before, but this time the bill is veto-proof. A 72-41 vote means if Governor Cooper denies the bill, lawmakers likely have the votes to pass it anyway. There's still some work to be done here. The Senate proposed its own version of the budget. Now the two chambers will work together to bring a final proposal to Governor Cooper. But will he like it? In a tweet, he said, "The House budget is better than the bad Senate budget, but that doesn't make it good. I look forward to negotiating a compromise that is fair to the entire state."
We are getting a closer look at how our state has changed over the last decade. Local data from the 2020 census came out this afternoon. Here is a look at the population change map in our area. The bluish green means the population grew over the last 10 years. The orange means the population shrank. Guilford County's population grew 11% nearly to more than 500,000 people. Alamance County's growth was even larger at 13%. 171,000 people now live there. Forsyth County grew 9%, their population just under 400,000 people. Charlotte and Raleigh saw far more growth, both in the 20% range. In fact, Wake County grew so much, its population is now larger than Mecklenburg County. Our state grew quite a bit as a whole. We found out back in April that we will get an additional seat in the U.S. House of Representatives because of our growth. It's now up to our state lawmakers to decide how the new districts will be drawn.
About 3,000 U.S. troops are heading back to Afghanistan weeks after the White House announced an end to the combat mission there. They'll help evacuate embassy staff as the Taliban continues gaining ground across the country. Tonight we've learned about 3,500 troops from Fort Bragg will head to Kuwait to act as reinforcements. They're on standby in case troops in Afghanistan need help. President Biden didn't comment on the developments today, but he's defended his decision to withdraw troops from the country by the end of this month.
Right now, dozens of people are still in the dark tonight after a strong storm swept through the Winston-Salem area this afternoon. Several trees came down across the area. Check out this tree that fell on a house on Wildwood Court. It was a similar scene off Silas Creek Parkway. Branches and debris in the roadway. Some trees fell on houses there as well. At one point, more than 700 homes and businesses lost power. Duke Energy estimates everything will be fixed in a few hours. Tim, those storms packed quite the punch, and tomorrow there's also another threat for more storms.
Julia, this is the third day in a row we've seen the same exact thing. Storms firing in the foothills, moving toward the Triad, and then they kind of fizzle out once they get a little bit to the east. Now everything is quiet, of course. It's nighttime. That's what we would expect. But to show you where a lot of that damage was felt today, generally from Forsyth County to Davie, right around Clemens, also Stokes, you had some issues, Surrey, Yadkin, and Wilkes County. All of those dots here representing some form of wind damage. Now, right now, like I said, there's nothing really going on. We do want these clouds to clear, so hopefully we can see some meteors later on tonight for that meteor shower. For the next several hours, we're only in the mid-70s, so it's a muggy night, still very humid. And for tomorrow, we'll do it again, right around 90 degrees by noon, feeling like closer to 100. So you've felt how it is the last couple of days. We have to do it again. We're up to 92 to 93 for your high, and there will still be that chance for storms. I'm quite confident in what's going to happen. The foothills, 1 to 3 p.m. The Triad, let's say 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's your timing for storms tomorrow. We'll call for a high of 92 degrees. That'll be your Friday. And of course, you can hold me to it. Stick around. We have a full 7-day, including the latest on the tropics.
More and more people going to the hospital with coronavirus means more work for doctors and nurses.
ERs in our state are crowded. A look inside a Novant Health emergency room where healthcare workers are overrun. It's next.